Can you see me yet? There we go. When it's not just the background, go audio or go auto. Hi. So there have been some talks about the 17th Amendment. Well, let me back up. Because of Trump's monumentous election and mandate from the majority of the populace that voted for it on president, winning the popular vote, a lot of people started really pushing the Senate. You guys need to just allow Trump to have his entire cabinet. That's how it is. If you don't, you're going to get primaried. You're going to get someone else in your spot next time you're up. And a lot of people started talking about the 17th Amendment at that point in time. And I think that's a good conversation to be having because not many people think about the 17th Amendment anymore. Because, it's been more than 100 years since that amendment was put in. No one knows what the 17th Amendment is at all, unless you're kind of a Constitution nerd. I wouldn't say I'm exactly a Constitution nerd, but I do know what that specifically one is. So in 1913, Woodrow Wilson was the president of the United States. He was a Princeton, I think he was the dean of Princeton previous to his becoming president. And he loved administration, bureaucracy. He loved organization, loved it. And he thought the United States needed more of it. We needed an administrative state. There was too much willy-nilly freedom going on. We needed control. So there were a few things that he did that kind of gave the federal government more control, which at first thought you wouldn't think that would actually happen, but it did. First, the 17th Amendment. Also, let me give you three. The introduction of the Federal Reserve, the income tax, and the direct election of senators, that being the 17th Amendment. Each one of those gives the federal government a lot of power. First, the Federal Reserve gives the federal government kind of a Weasley way of printing as much money as they want and not having to worry about checks or balances. It causes inflation. The more you print, the more money is in the money supply, the more the value decreases, hence inflation. Very simple. Some people might say, oh, it's government spending that causes inflation. Yes, but it's the government asking the Fed to print more money to spend that is the inflation causing thing. And people might argue with me about that. I don't care. Second, income tax, that gives the federal government the ability to tax the populace to offset the spending that it's doing. And all of a sudden, the free people of the United States are no longer free because part of their freedom was freedom from direct taxation. Also, the Constitution kind of said that there would be no direct taxation. Anyway, this is not the podcast for, or the stream for talking about the income tax or anything. It's the 17th Amendment. The last one, 17th Amendment, direct election of the senators. Why do you think that's a big, or why do I think that's a big deal? Because when senators, previous to the 17th Amendment, the way the government was set up was you've got your House of Representatives that represented the people of the United States, and then you had the Senate, which represented the states of the United States, and then the president was a representative of the United States to all of foreign countries, kind of an ambassador to the world type of situation. So, but within the House, or there was a House, and then there was a Senate. So both the populace in general and the states specifically had representatives to give their say on how the country should be run. So when a senator was appointed to the Senate, he would be appointed by the state legislatures that the populace of each state sent to their state capital. And that way, the states would have, and the state legislature and the governor, et cetera, would have very strict control on those senators. Those senators would understand, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do for those states and for those state legislatures, the state senators, the state's governor, I'm going to have to report back to them why I voted this way, I acted that way, I didn't appoint this person, I didn't appoint that person. So, and I would say the states would probably be able to pay closer attention to that, because that's their job. The job of the state legislature, the job of the state senators, the job of the governor is the management of that specific state. And part of the management of that specific state is communicating with the federal government. Fairly easy, fairly basic to understand. And because each state is equal within the United States, whether the populace is equal or not, that doesn't matter. The rights of each state is equal. That's why we have 2 senators for each state. Or originally, that's why we did have that. And that didn't change when the 17th Amendment came around and we got the direct election of senators from the populace of each state. But now that we have that direct election of senators, a lot of people now, because they don't understand why it was set up or how it was set up originally, or why it was set up originally, there's a lot of people saying, well, that's stupid that Idaho gets 2 senators and they've got so many less people than California. That means Idaho's so much more powerful, or Idaho senators are so much more powerful than California senators, or something along those lines. If you're talking about representative as far as per capita or for the populace, you're right. And in that sense, it isn't fair, but that's not how it should have been, or that's not how it should be anyway. And that's why I say we should get rid of the 17th Amendment, because the 17th Amendment is not how the government should be structured, not how it was structured from the beginning. And it goes against all of the understanding of people, of the founders. And so when actually, let me bring up something. So I went on to Grok on Twitter, or X, depending on how you want to say it. And I ask, when the United States was founded, what relation did the states have to the federal government? And I really liked what Grok had to say. The Grok is the AI that Elon Musk provides with with X. And it gave me 4 points. The states were considered sovereign entities, which means they saw themselves as independent nations coming together for mutual benefit. Think of it like a very loose confederation, where states were more like, hey, we'll hang out, but don't try to boss me around. Grok's interesting in that it tries to give responses in a very human manner. Number 2, the Articles of Confederation, initially before the Constitution was created. Initially, the relationships were governed by the Articles of Confederation, where the federal government was more like that one cousin at family gatherings who's there but doesn't really have much to say in how the dinner goes, except for declaring war or managing foreign affairs. Okay, I don't know if that works. Limited federal power. The federal government had powers like declaring war, entering treaties, and managing foreign affairs, but couldn't levy taxes or regulate commerce between states. It was a bit like trying to herd cats, but with more quill pens. Okay. And then number 4, with the shift with the Constitution, this changed with the Constitution in 1787, where the federal government got a bit of an upgrade. Now it could actually do things like tax, regulate commerce, and generally act like a government. States still retained significant powers, but the federal government was now more dominant, was now the more dominant partner at this dance. I then asked how the senators related to that dynamic. And there we go. Number 1, senators were the embodiment of states' interests in the federal government. Each state, no matter how small or large, got 2 senators, ensuring that the tiniest state had a voice that could holler as loud as the big ones. This was like giving each state a megaphone at the federal dinner table. Yeah, I don't know how much I enjoy Grok throwing these analogies in. Number 2, their role was part of the checks and balances system. Senators could say nay to treaties or presidential appointments. And again, more analogies of dinner parties, advice and consent. They had to provide advice and consent for presidential nominations and treaties. Number 4, senatorial courtesy. In the founding era, there was an unwritten rule called senatorial courtesy, where senators could almost single-handedly block appointments in their home state if they disapproved. And I don't understand the senatorial courtesy. I'll need to do a little bit more research on that one. And then the last point in this part, senators were there to protect state sovereignty against federal overreach. They were the ones who could argue for state policies in national debates. So initially, like I said before, the Senate was all about what was best for the states. And that way, Idaho, California, New York, Florida, all of them have an equal footing as far as states go. Because the populace of each state is different, the House is where the population actually matters. So if you've got 40 million people in your state, you've got a whole lot of representatives. And in Idaho, you get 2 for your representatives because there's not many people here. That's okay. And then the last part, I asked Grok, how did that change with the introduction of the 17th Amendment? And I'll pull that up. Okay. Before the 17th Amendment, the senators were chosen by state legislatures, which meant they were direct representatives of states' governments. The amendment changed this direct popular election, meaning senators now had to appeal directly to the people of their states, not just the state politicians. Number 2, a shift in loyalty. With the senators now elected by the populace, their allegiance subtly shifted. They were no longer beholden to the state legislature, but had to consider the broader electorate's desires. So in other words, they became exactly like the House of Representatives. They didn't care about the state, they cared about the populace within the state. And there are differences there. The populace cares about their individual issues. The state representatives, they care about what's happening within the state politically or governmentally. Okay, number 3, senators became more directly accountable to public, which meant they had to pay closer attention to public opinions, issues, and elections. So in other words, they had to worry about political pop culture, I would say, like transgender bathrooms and other dumb things that we shouldn't be worrying about, or senators shouldn't be worrying about. If the House wants to worry about stuff like that, go ahead. But the Senate, they should be worrying about state-related things. And then number 3, the senators became more directly accountable to the public, which meant they had to pay closer attention to public opinion polls, issues, and elections. Number 4, the state legislature lost their direct say in who represented them in the Senate. Now, this is the one thing that I don't know if it ever actually happened, but it should have been able to happen, is if before the 17th Amendment, if a senator was not acting the way he should within the government, the state legislature should be able to recall him immediately because he's not doing what he should. Just like how Gavin Newsom had a recall election for him a few years ago. Sadly, California did not vote him out. They actually voted him back in with a higher percentage than he was voted in originally, oddly enough. But because of that shift to a popular vote, the senators are there for 6 years, and if they're voted in and they start acting idiotic right off the bat, they have 6 years to reform their the way the populace looks at them, their voting record or whatever. So in 6 years, the populace might have forgotten that they really screwed over their state 6 years ago. In the House of Representatives, it's every 2 years. So because of that, the ideas of what was happened don't get lost in time nearly as much. So one of 2 things either needs to happen. One, dissolve the Senate or lower their election cycle to every 2 years, like the House of Representatives. Or my personal opinion is get rid of the 17th Amendment because it sucks. It blows. No one should have 17th Amendment. If there was one president that I wish we could bring back from dead so we could impeach him would be Wilson. God, that guy ruins everything. Gave us the income tax, senators, or direct election of senators. Oh, so frustrating. Makes me want to just do something that I shouldn't. Anyway, I may actually do a little series for each of the amendments, because one, that would help me remember what each of the amendments is, because I know the first and the second and the fourth kind of, and the fifth kind of, and the ninth kind of, and the 10th. And after that, it gets really, really foggy. And I'm assuming that that's basically the same for literally everybody in the United States or in the world, because how many people in the world really care about what's happening in America or has read the Constitution? How many people in America have read the Constitution? Anyway, I don't think I see any questions or chats or anything. So I will just call that a day. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down below. If you think it's a good idea that I do a different thing on each of the different amendments, also let me know. I'm actually planning on doing an interview this week, not political at all. It's actually, I'll be interviewing a friend of mine that built his house using something called Perfect Block. It's a really cool building material that withstands 250 mile an hour winds, has a 4-hour, 4,000 degree burn rate, can withstand an 8.0 earthquake, can withstand a grenade blast, and with his roof structure specifically, can hold up to 25 feet of ice and snow. It was engineered by some Navy guys, so they really over engineered it, and is less expensive than a standard house to build with the Perfect Block. And basically, it's ICCF, insulated something foam. Blocks, you stack them on top of each other, pour concrete in, and stucco or something on top of it. The R value for the walls is like R60, and a standard American home is R20, I think, for the walls. So very, very insulative, very eco-friendly. Oh, the blocks, they're made out of recycled refrigeration transport foam. So you're recycling and you're getting all these other benefits. It's really, really cool. And building it is really actually quite easy. The blocks you can just cut with a saw if you're needing to trim them or anything like that. Anyway, yeah, I'll be having an interview with him, and that will be fun. He has a lot to say about it, a lot more than I have to say. Yeah, that's going to be happening sometime this week, and then I'll be interviewing my local county commissioner, or one of the 3 local county commissioners, sometime in the near future, if I can get him on. If there's anyone you'd like me to interview, please let me know, and I will see if I can grab someone else. Anyway, it's been fun, and I will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.